Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Pearce. I'm the lead programmer for Milton Film Festival, and you all just finished watching the excellent film No Ordinary Man. I'm here with co-director Chase Joynt. Um, I could tell the audience a lot about you, but maybe you can tell them a bit about yourself first.
I would be so curious to hear you do that work.
Yeah.
I'm a filmmaker and I'm a writer. I'm also a professor of gender studies at UVic.
Awesome. So I congratulating you on this film and it's so educational, it's thought provoking. It just really came across like it was a labor of love for you guys. Um, I'm just wondering if you can tell the audience how you got involved with the film and what particularly drew you to the project.
Yeah, absolutely. So the project started at Parabola Films with Sarah Spring in Montreal and Aisling Chinyi, my co-director. And they had an opportunity to tell this incredible story about Billy Tipton and recognized very quickly that to tell a story about Billy Tipton, they needed to have a team of trans creators to animate and think about the stakes of a story like his. And so approached Amos Mack, the co-writer, and me as co-director to really think as a team of four about the potentials of a project like this. And the answer to why I was so attracted to the project is quite easy. You know, the legacy of Tipton's life is one that has long been controlled by the talk and tabloid media. And I was really compelled and inspired when thinking about what was possible if we were to approach Tipton's story from a trans perspective or through a trans lens.
Mm-hmm. And I think the most interesting part of the film, I'm sure other people would agree, is just the vignettes with all of the trans folks, like, interpreting his story and then sort of like reflecting that in their own experience and, feeling seen and seeing someone else that none of them have ever met, but they feel that kinship with Billy and especially Marquise. Like everybody loves Marquise, and he just did such an excellent job in there, and it was very emotional. And for me, like, watching shows like The L Word and all those things and feeling seen as well. Um, I really related to the film and the parts too where they talk about, unfortunately with more visibility comes, like a lack of safety sometimes and people misinterpreting your story and misrepresenting you. So I was wondering if you could.
Tell me the end of that question again. You were stalled.
Did I cut out again?
You did, yeah.
Um, just like the catch-22 that's sort of discussed in the film with more visibility comes that lack of safety sometimes and more people sort of questioning you and misrepresenting you, misinterpreting you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different ways to approach that question, but the way I always start is to say that the opposite of visibility is vulnerability. And I think visibility can so often produce the fantasy of social change that obscures the very real ongoing violence against trans women of color in particular. And so part of the work in our film is to shine light on the violence of curiosity and to foreground this relationship between visibility and vulnerability along the way. And I think that one of the things that you beautifully spoke to at the beginning of your question was how the film becomes a kind of politics of recognition between transmasculine people, not only in the room, but historically, where we have young transmasculine identified people looking at Tipton and finding things that resonate, even if it's not an accurate mapping, right? And so there's a kind of hopeful looking back in service of a more hopeful future.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard it said before, hope is hearing other people's experiences,
Hmm.
right? And like sometimes I know I didn't fully understand myself until I met other people that, I felt that relationship with and that connection. Um, I'm just seeing in the audience here, we have a question. I've been thinking about Billy's relationship with Billy Jr.
Hmm.
Billy Jr. said early on that he and his dad talked a lot. Um, yeah, just wondering if you can speak to your time with Billy Jr. Like I thought the relationship you guys developed was really interesting to watch too.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved our time with Billy Jr. We spent the most time with Billy Jr. of anyone in the film for so many reasons. Of course, Billy is the holder of his father's archive, not only the stories, but the literal objects that are left after his father's death. And, you know, as you see in the film, Billy Jr. was really strewn across the talk show circuit and really was also someone who was hugely impacted in negative ways by the violence of talk show curiosities. And one of the things that I think is so remarkable about him is his appearance on those shows in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He's not working from a script. He's not bolstered by friends and family who understand transness or gender nonconformity, but he is steadfastly in support of his father's life and his father's legacy. And so when we approached as a documentary team, he had a number of really good questions about the ways in which we might be approaching the story. And it was through a real genuine, ongoing get to know you that we were able to find the grooves that you see naturally unfolding in the film.
Mm-hmm. And Carolyn saying, I think the quality of that relationship helped them both. There was an obvious love and respect between each other. I'm glad about that. And the same way, and just watching like the way that the media just like tore this whole story apart, even like Oprah, it was really disturbing because this wasn't, you know, that long ago. And I think people like to think that we've really grown and changed, and we have, and that should be celebrated, but there's still a long ways to go. And I think, you know, the documentary speaks to that a lot, right?
Absolutely. You
And
know,
I guess the other question I had too is the music in the film. Like I think that that's kind of a way that Billy can speak for himself, right? There's no like moving images of him, so I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit too.
yeah, absolutely. So to your point, the music is the legacy. The music is the most of Billy Tipton's voice affect that we have. We have those recordings of him that we found through our research at the Stanford Archives, but ultimately we wanted to invite the opportunity for the music to be a kind of character for the bars and stages that are in the back of our speaking subjects to evoke a kind of environment where Tipton might have been. And then through collaboration with our composer, Rich O'Coin, who's based in Halifax, we were able to develop a soundtrack and a kind of collaborative musical spirit that was always in conversation with Tipton's original tracks.
Yeah, it was just really beautiful, and I guess I'm just wondering what else you're up to. I think a lot of your films deal with like family and that kind of thing, and culture and community. And I remember I met you at Reel Out in Kingston years ago, and I think you were showing Akin
Okay,
there,
yeah.
and now this is where you are. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm in production on a feature called Framing Agnes, which is based on a short of the same name, which is about never before seen case files from transgender history. And is thinking about this moment in the mid 1950s and late 1950s where medicine and media were quite literally making the categories of sex and gender that we all live with and inhabit and push back against today.
That's awesome. Well, if there's anything else you want to say to the audience, I don't see any other questions here. I'm just going to double check here. No. Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you from your busy evening. I'm thrilled that we had you here. It was one of my favorite films I watched in the past year, and I hope we can connect again on your next project.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Cheers.
Bye.